All right. Welcome to episode 4 of the Nathan and Andrew podcast, or Andrew Nathan podcast, whatever we're calling this thing. And today we're going to be going over state versus government, or federal versus state government authorities, and uh, try to cover some of the topics that we missed last week. I'm Andrew. Uh,
This is Nate.
and yeah, let's get right into it. Um, why don't you kind of lead the discussion then?
Yeah. So, what I've been interested in this week is, well, for the last couple weeks, especially since in my general hometown area, there's been some craziness with protesters, with riots, with different groups of people. Primarily, I believe it's Black Lives Matter and Antifa. For example, in the Seattle area, which is relatively close to me, they had occupied an area of Seattle known as the Chaz or the Chop or whatever its name ended up being, and that has been dealt with. And now in other places in the country, such as Portland, Antifa still has a major presence and it's been going on for quite a while. And the federal government has sent troops in, or police, law enforcement in, to go and detain leaders and other pro Antifa or Black Lives Matter supporters. And I generally am not a huge fan of police. I don't think that the police are worthless or they should be completely disbanded. In my opinion, when I see a police officer, I generally think, "Oh, dang it! I'm going 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, and I am totally going to get a ticket right now." But police definitely do have their utility. I'm just curious if it's really the federal government's place to go in and enforce laws when the states won't. We have seen this during the civil rights,
Um,
but yeah,
I think that precedent was set back in the Civil War, right? Like we stopped being a confederation of states and became like there's the federal government and then there's the state governments, and the federal's government has the final say on stuff because
yes,
the southern states are like, all right, well, do you want to run things your way north? We want to run things our way. We're gonna split, and then the north was like, no, I'm gonna take you and lock you in my basement because I can't have a divorce, and then now we have the country we have.
yep,
Um, it's an interesting question though. I personally like I personally think the federal government has the ultimate authority, and that might, I don't know, some people might not agree with that or whatever, but if you don't set the like what the way I think it should work is the federal government should have the ultimate authority, but they shouldn't be as involved as they are in all the little things, right? You kind of um, spread that out. So a example might be like building codes, right? There should be no federal building codes. There should be state and local, or not even state, probably like municipality building codes because there's specific things for specific areas, right? If your um, if your soil
oh
is
sure,
like very clay-like, that's going to require different building constraints than like if it's a sandy soil or blah 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 blah, depending on weather and all that stuff, right? So the federal
of
government should
course.
have the end say, but they shouldn't have a say in as much as they currently do.
Yeah, no, I mean, like for example, in Washington State or Colorado or a bunch of other states now, you're allowed to go buy marijuana, which I know, crazy drug, but that's still federally illegal, and I think you can still technically be prosecuted in a federal court even if you're living in Washington smoking pot and not. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I have seen a
And
couple cases like that. It's been weird.
Yeah, which is weird because you expect, hey, I'm following the law, therefore I shouldn't get in trouble. However, the federal government disagrees with you because you're not following their law.
Yeah. Well, and they get them in a weird catch-22 because it's like they're trying to file their taxes and stuff like that and be legal, but then when they file their taxes, they like send in, if they don't file their taxes, they send in the IRS, and if they do file the taxes, they send in the FBI
I think it's technically the ATF,
or
wouldn't it be?
ATF. My
Or
bad.
no, DEA, my bad.
DA. Yeah,
DEA.
yeah. But anyway, the whatever federal thing deals with the drug stuff. So it's a weird one. I don't necessarily have the answer on this one. I
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of think so. For example, both you and I were relatively fit young people, and I don't think that me or you generally need protection. It would have to be quite an extraneous circumstance for either of us to need protection at any level, really. At least physically. We need protection under the law, but physically we don't need protection for the most part. I think you'd probably agree with that. However, there's a
I mean,
lot
it
of
depends
people
on
who
the
are,
stability of the system, right? Are you talking about like in our current
yes,
system?
I'm saying for my entire life, my entire adult life, I have not felt like I have needed, help from police or any sort of government agency
Okay, yeah. You're talking on
in
our
defense.
system, not like if like there was no laws kind of thing.
Yeah, correct.
Got it. All right, just clarifying.
Yep. But there is a significant amount of the population, whether it's the very young or the very old or disabled or people who are just not very physically strong, men and women for that matter, who, if they get themselves in a bad situation or, if they're mentally ill, that they can't really protect themselves. And I think that people are actually really scared right now. I think that can be shown with the rising gun sales. I think this is the most guns sold ever in a year for America. I would be willing to wager that is per capita for the population more than just the gross total of firearms sold.
Yeah.
So people are definitely
Expect a
worried.
fire sale of bought but never used firearms after the election. That's my prediction.
Yeah, yeah, I'd actually like to talk to you about that as well. But I think that it probably is a good thing for the most part that the federal government is trying to keep order in states that are not wanting there to be order. But I'm worried as well that it could look like the federal government is sending in I don't know, pardon my Star Wars reference, but the stormtroopers in to go and quash the rebellion.
See,
And
you say stormtroopers, but is that a Star Wars reference or is that a German military reference?
well,
Just
for
saying.
me, it's a Star Wars reference.
All right.
The rebels are popping up. We got to go squash them. We got to make sure that they don't, get power, get influence, and don't terrorize the local communities.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons that um, Trump has been kind of hands off with the whole thing. Is he's like,
Yep.
you have to want, you have to basically beg me to come in and save you, kind of thing, because that's how it always works.
I
And
don't really necessarily understand that because the states all have their own national guards, and I mean we both know people who are in the National Guard. Uh, mostly normal people, but they also have cohesive units, as far as I understand. And it's just young people with rifles and enforcing the law. So I
yeah,
don't think that you actually ever really need the federal government, maybe in times of extreme crisis, such as a hurricane or something. But
okay,
in general, I would say that they should be able to operate without the federal government if they were
sure, but
operating in
like the
good faith.
role of the state is to maintain order. That is its
That's correct.
first and primary role, and everything else is secondary.
That is
So if it
correct. Yep.
can't do that, it loses legitimacy, and people will go and seek their order somewhere else. So what the government is
Self-evident.
doing right now is a way to. Right now, it's like it's a if you're doing like a states' rights versus federal government like battle as to who has more authority or whatever, uh, basically what Trump is doing is he's like, all right, I will defer the federal responsibility to maintain order to the states. And that's generally how we've had it set up, right? Police forces and stuff like that are, city based. It's not even state based. It's like based on the city and all that stuff. He's like, I will defer that to you guys. But
Correct.
if you fail in that job, I will take it over. But you have to let it sit there and fester for so long that people basically are like, someone has to do something. That's the phrase that they're looking for. And then they jump in.
People cry out for Caesar. Yeah, I think that's how Marcus Aurelius would put it.
Yeah. So that's what he's kind of waiting for. And for the most part, he followed that principle. And so then when they see, okay, well, my state government was supposed to take care of this. They were either unwilling to, they were either couldn't because they didn't actually have the authority and force required. They either didn't do anything because they don't actually believe in maintaining order, or they're incompetent. It's one of those three things, right? They have
Yes.
lost their political authority to rule and therefore have ceded some of that power to the federal government. Now, the question is, the weird thing that we're kind of sitting on is, well, we don't have a system that always, like Trump, we like Trump being in there, right? In general. But he's going to be gone in, 4 more years, right? Because he's...
Yeah, maximum. Yep.
Yeah, max 4 more years. So it's like, okay, well, what happens after that? But I don't know. I kind of fall on the line of it's a hard one to discern which way you're supposed to go on this, because there's two philosophies. One is you don't want to give the enemy any tools that they could use against you.
Of course.
So that's philosophy number one. Philosophy number two is your enemy doesn't actually have any principles. So if you set up certain rules that they have to follow, they're not going to follow them anyway. So you might as well do everything you can to fight against it, because if they'll invent a tool that's going to try to destroy you, and you definitely use the tools they invent, but then, because that's one thing that like conservatives and stuff like that will do. It's like, well, the left did this thing, and that's not the way it's supposed to be, and they set this precedent, but that precedent's bad. Now, we could use that same precedent to take what our agenda and push and ram home through like a ton of stuff. Get abortion pulled back. Get, I don't know, whatever the conservative agenda is. I know that one at least is a big one.
Yeah,
and
my
push
big problem...
back and clear out and like push back against it, but they never do that because they're supposed to lose. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I think this comes back to what Plato said, which I think I've probably said this on this podcast before, but Plato said, and this is, translated from Greek, so it probably sounds better in Greek. Good people do not need laws to tell them to act responsibly, while bad people will find a way around the laws. Which I think is pretty self-evident. Most people, me and you included in this, kind of just want to be left alone, kind of want to do our own thing. And
in general, that's true.
Society.
Yeah, and in general, that is true. But there's like a lot of gray area type stuff that's not necessarily the case.
I don't understand what you're saying.
So, like, let's take speed limits, right? So you're like,
oh, yeah.
So
guilty.
And some of them,
guilty as charged.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I speed and stuff, but
how dare you?
Like some of those highways and stuff like that, if they didn't have like a speed limit set up there, like there the road might be only rated because of various twists and turns and stuff like that to for you to go a certain speed,
Yep.
right? That, like where they have like those turn signs where it's like, do it 20 miles per hour. Now they're probably off by a little bit, but at least they give you a ballpark as to like what's reasonable on this road,
Yep. Yep.
right? And there's certain things that innately, like there's an infrastructure and stuff like that around how we do things that people assume if we just removed all that, that everything would function. And for the first generation, it would. Like if we just got rid of all of the speed limit signs and and red lights and stuff like that, like people generally had people knew where the lights were set up and like how to let people go one and another, and like there's certain niceties that were culturally and societally built up because of various rules that we had that people would respect for a generation, and then they would go away because the
Yeah.
next generation wouldn't know
Yeah.
what those rules are or why we're following them.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand that. Especially, I don't know if you've seen traffic videos in more heavily populated areas of, for example, India,
Yeah, dude, it's a
where
nightmare.
where it's just crazy. But man, I bet those are some of the best drivers in the whole world. I've heard
There
Israel is
is
much
that
the same way.
aspect. Like the
But
fact
yeah,
that there isn't just like piles of cars everywhere baffles me.
I would not feel safe driving. I've never been in an accident. Well, I've been in self-inflicted accidents, but that was mostly, doing donuts and crashing into a post. Don't recommend. Jeeps are top heavy. Do not recommend that. Anyway, side point, main point. Yeah.
I remember getting ferried in like Cancun or something from like the airport to like the resort that we were going to.
Oh,
And
sure.
it was like traffic like that, and this dude was like taking all the back alleys and just bobbing and weaving everywhere in like this massive van. And it was a little nervous just because like of all the craziness, but it was also very impressive. Like it was like, dang, dude, this guy can drive.
The people in Mexico City are, I would argue, some of the best drivers in the world. They're pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been there too. But yeah, I don't think Cancun, Mexico. Anyway, side point, main point. Yeah. No, I agree. We probably could get rid of a lot of regulations and things would be good for a time, but new generations of people would come in, they wouldn't understand or they wouldn't care. Especially, I don't know if you ever heard of this. Have you ever heard of broken window theory?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's where
I
if you. Mhm.
kind of agree with it. But yeah, let's explain what it is.
So, for those of you who don't know, broken window theory, which in summary is if there's one thing wrong, there's probably going to be a bunch more things wrong. So, for example, if you're going to go buy a car and you find out that there's something wrong that was not previously disclosed to you, then it probably means that there's 10 other things that you're not seeing. Or if we don't go and enforce the laws on the books for small things, like let's say petty theft or speeding violations or traffic violations in general, then people are going to naturally progress towards more significant infractions.
Yeah. Basically, it was enforcing the law how the law is supposed to be enforced, which is kind of like that's kind of the dumb part about it. It's like broken window theory. Enforcing the law how it's supposed to be enforced. That's
Well,
how
yeah,
kind of it's just like do it baffles me. Like, and I kind of get it. There's people are people, and there's some discretion and stuff like that. Like, I've been let off the hook for like a speeding ticket once or twice, and I definitely appreciate that. Um, so
I would argue it's still punishment to have you pulled over and to spike your cortisol levels, and it's going to make you think twice about speeding again next time, though.
true, but like, here's the thing. Apparently, it worked like crazy well because,
In New
um,
York?
yeah.
Yes.
So I mean, obviously, if you enforce the laws and stop people from committing crimes stop getting committed. Like, the idea
That is
that's a
correct, but it's
unique
all, yeah.
theory is just, oh man, that's like some I want to say Orwellian, but it's not really Orwellian.
Well,
But
no, I don't think it's too crazy though. So I mean, hear me out about this. I speed probably like when I'm on I-5 or something. The speed limit might be 60, and me being a crazy jerk goes, I don't know, 65 miles an hour. And I would honestly be a bit shocked if I got pulled over because I'm not putting anyone else in danger, and everyone knows that there is a little bit of wiggle room. But if I was going 75, then yeah, I mean, all bets off. I get if I go buy a police car, I'm probably gonna get a ticket, and I deserve it,
yeah, but like, see, there's like, it
which I have
depends.
done.
I don't exactly know what they did with like the broken window enforcement in like New York, right? Because there's a difference between like the laws of like this is how fast you should drive for like etiquette kind of reasons, and then we have like a way that we enforce it versus um like driving across North Dakota and it's says 70 but you're going 80 and it's perfectly beautiful out and it like it's fine and like it's the road could probably handle you doing 80. Like
Yeah, it's
there's a
straight.
difference between like that and like breaking property, petty theft, like things of
You're
that
talking
nature.
about crimes that I don't know. I guess for lack of better words, would go against the non-aggression principle. So crimes against other people versus crimes against, hey, I'm going 80 miles an hour. If I take a bad turn, I'm gonna wreck my car and myself, which is
Yeah.
really
And
only on
I
me.
wonder if I look up broken window theory, it'll tell me.
Oh
Uh,
well.
if it's like hardcore, like enforce everything, or
Yeah, I think that it does leave room for the human error of things, and people understand that, yeah, fine, I'm not supposed to go 65, but I will because I'm going 5 miles an hour over, and I don't know, it just
yeah.
feels better.
And here's the thing, like 5 miles over in like a residential area versus like 5 miles over in like on a highway is like two very different things, right?
Yeah, going 20 miles an hour, going 20 miles an hour in a neighborhood versus 15 miles an hour is pretty significant. But yeah, no, I mean, I think we both understand what we're saying there. Um,
So I don't know.
so
But the thing is, like, the only reason I'm like, I don't know if is because I like to speed and I don't want to get a ticket. But in reality, like, that's the rules and that's what I should be following. So,
yeah, sure. Or maybe I want to smoke pot and I live in, I don't know, let's say South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana, or something where pot's illegal still. Yeah, I'm still breaking the law, but I'm not really hurting anyone. But should that law be enforced? That way we don't get hard drugs like, I don't know, PCP or something. I don't know.
yeah. And if you don't enforce those laws, you're going to have Californians showing up. Nobody wants that.
Those damn Californians. But yeah,
And then the laws are going to change and then it's going to end up as, like, a cesspool like, all the major California cities. So, like, that's the thing you got to think about is if you're enforcing order, you will end up with the people that don't want order are going to leave, and they're going to go to places that allow disorder. And I don't know how many people that is, but it's a certain percentage of the population.
this is part of the reason why I think laws should be very, we should have very few laws on the books. Because if you're saying something like marijuana, which I think it actually is a negative for people, I think it is bad for people to do it. I know people
I
who
mean, so is
have
alcohol. Like,
essentially, yeah,
but
it is. They're both bad. But at the end of the day, I don't think we should have a law on it. I think people should be allowed to make their own decisions as adults um, for most of everything. With that being said, I think that
we probably shouldn't
broken
have to
window
have a
theory,
law to tell people not to murder each other as well.
that's a bit of a ridiculous one. Yeah, that just goes against natural law on its face. But
But you
yeah,
have people that can't seem to figure that out.
I mean, you have some pretty nasty people. Probably most of them either had poor childhoods or abusive childhoods or just maybe some brain damage. I just don't see how people can get into the state where they think that that's in any way justifiable outside of self-defense.
Well, I mean, there are
With that.
aspects of like, there's times it's
Yeah,
justified. Don't get me wrong,
no,
but
you're totally right. Everything is permittable in the right circumstances. It's
not
very,
everything.
very rare. You're right. There's obviously things that are not permitted, but I'm being a little bit hyperbolic when I'm saying that
Yeah, 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 I get it.
most
I
things
just
are permitted in the right circumstances.
yeah, like, but here's the thing with this like broken window theory, right? It's like, all right, you're gonna hardcore enforce the, and here's the other thing that it gets down to. So if you like hardcore enforce the laws, it can clear out like if you have like systematic issues that are causing these crimes, it might show you those. So like a good example would be like if all of a sudden, let's say there's a famine going on, right? And like a bunch of people
Sure.
are getting arrested for stealing, but it's stealing food so they don't starve to death. You know, it's like that. Then you can kind of be like, okay, well, there seems to be like a bigger systematic, like, why is everyone starving to death? And, you know, it might be something obvious like a famine, but it might be like, oh, because of like this economic, it might turn out it's like, oh, because of this economic policy that did this, like, uh, nobody's allowed to make any money.
Yeah, one of Stalin's 5-year plans. Sure.
And then, and now everyone's starving to death, right? And so then you gotta rejig and re-figure out what's going on. So,
Well, yeah, I'm not in favor of having a strictly binary system where okay, you broke law, you go to jail, right? Because there's a lot of mitigating circumstances that can happen. I mean, even which God forbid this ever happened to either of us or anyone we know or anyone in general. Like you have to take another human being's life. That can be justified, like if someone breaks in your house or catches you in an alley. But so we shouldn't be blind to the human aspect of things. The the justice system should take mitigating circumstances into account, and they should take someone's position into account. Like if you're starving and you steal food, are you really a threat to society? Probably not. Um, but laws that we have probably should be enforced to their extent for the most part.
well, yeah, and this is where like it gets into why community is so important because the bigger the organization gets, the less um, detailed and like um, context you can have around these type of things, right? You can't be like, oh, well, you know, he's starving or blah 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 happened. Like, you know, you don't have those things going on, so the state's just like, you broke the law. This is what the rule is. This is how like it's very procedural, right? It's basically like a bot running it. It's like, well, the law is you don't do this, and you did this, and book says that this crime equals 20 years in prison, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So that's what you get. And it's just like instead of being like, oh, I mean, I I had to steal an apple to not starve to death or something. It's like book says you get 20 years. It's like,
Book says. Yeah, no, I get that. And also, we could have a totally perfect law abiding society, or not totally perfect, but close to it. For example, places like Singapore, if you chew gum and spit it out on the side of the road, then you're going to get caned publicly, which I would not suggest is something that we should do.
I like it.
And they man, I do not like the idea of just caning the hell out of people for minor infractions. It's not
Do
my
you
my
want clean
idea.
streets? I bet those streets don't have gum all over them.
Yeah, I mean Seattle has a gum wall, a literal gum wall.
Yeah, that's
But
gross.
yeah, it's pretty disgusting. But I also put gum on it a couple times.
Oh my god, see? Contributing to the problem. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah, me, just a lawless individual over here.
yeah, and I mean like just think about like America has like this culture and kind of like enforcement of littering more than other places. And in general, like America, if you go to like other European countries and stuff like that, especially like Spain and Italy, like there's just trash and and dirt and just like stuff like that all over the place over there.
That's nasty. Yep.
And like that's not it. It is the case in certain areas in America, but it's like very concentrated small areas. Whereas like on the whole, it's pretty clean. Like people like throw their trash away. Like that's just something you do.
Yep. No, I agree, but I think we got to that point with, giving people small fines for littering as opposed to caning the hell out of them in a public square.
I don't know, man.
I mean, granted, I think that caning the crap out of people for minor infractions probably would get people to follow the law more specifically. However, I don't think it's the right thing to do. And there's so many laws in the books. For example, in Washington, if you are just a lawless individual and you want to go and order cigars online, that's a felony in the state of Washington.
Also, you got to think about it this way, right? So, all
Yeah,
right, imagine that you're starving to death and you steal something and you get caught.
cigars.
You're stealing cigars and you're starving to death.
Hey man, you gotta enjoy your way out.
Anyway, so you steal some food and you get caught and you're like starving to death, and then you get slapped with a fine. Well, you're starving to death. How are you supposed to pay that fine?
What you're suggesting is it should be the community's responsibility to come together, maybe help you get a job somewhere, and
No,
get
what
you
I'm
on your
saying
feet.
is, what I'm saying is that like if it was the caning was the thing, it'd be over. It'd be like, all right, you're not allowed to do that. We're gonna hit you with this cane like 3 times, and then you're gonna be on your way. And don't steal apples even if you're starving. Find a job, blah blah blah. Do what you gotta do.
Yeah, sure.
But like, imagine the situation that someone could get in if it was like a fine, right? Because this is something that's happened to some people where it's like it gets, and part of it's because people just refuse to pay for random reasons. But it's like, okay, well, I don't have any money. Well, now I got to go get a payday loan, which is like 5,000% interest, and now I'm even
Yeah.
farther behind. Like at a certain point, you'd be like, you know what? I'll just take the beating.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean that is correct. I mean, I would rather take a beating than go to jail for a year. I mean, every day of the week. I don't care how bad the beating is.
so yeah, it's not like I obviously like if you're in that situation, generally people don't want to be held accountable for their actions. So you'd be like, can I just like slip by? Like that would be the ideal. Like, can we do that? But I mean, it's yeah, and I get it. Like, you know, it's hard always taking responsibility when you fuck up, but that's
Yeah,
part of life.
yeah, no, I agree, and the goal is to put yourself in a situation where you can be financially responsible and be, I don't know, just responsible in general, so you don't get in the situation where you're having to steal for food. But there are crazy things that can happen. Like I could get some crazy disease tomorrow. But yeah. Anyways, back to the point with Portland and the federal law enforcement agencies trying to enforce peace in these places. Do you think that this will end up being a good thing for the country, or do you think that this could drive the country further apart?
You talk about like because Chaz have, are you talking about just in general like Fed greater
Federal
authority?
federal law enforcement going into states like Oregon, or I mean, I don't think it's happened, but in Washington or whatever other states having some craziness. Do you think that that would be a short-term good and a long-term bad, or a short-term good and a long-term good?
Um, hard to say exactly. So
Me too.
short term good, yeah. The question is, I mean, they basically want to do this anyway, right? So
Well, they
Yeah,
want to do
I
what
think
particularly?
it's a good. Here's the thing: if like the government goes in and does this stuff, like the Prometheans were gonna do this crap anyway. If they're able to burn down cities with no accountability when Trump is in office, what do you think would happen if like anyone else that wasn't gonna stand up to these people, Republican or Democrat, because most of them folded, like was in that office?
Yeah,
The truth
I
of
want
the
to point
matter
out,
is,
yeah,
like, like just think about like the fact that Ken and Karen they created or like the state sued them and the government came and raided and took their AR-15s away like after they lawfully defended their home.
to be fair, she did have her finger on the trigger, which is, I think, assault under the civil definition. But
Okay.
again, she was
Were any
defending
of those people
property.
arrested for the fact that they broke down a gate?
I'm not making a moral argument, and no, to my understanding, no, that has not happened.
So it's just like they're gonna do their garbage anyway. So I think if you can get the win, take the win.
Okay. So you're saying that this is an uphill battle, and take your win where you can get it because it's going to be a battle no matter what.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like at the end of the day, like you always think like, oh, what's this system gonna do? What's this system gonna do? Ultimately, what it comes down to is, are the people moral, and is it going to be used in a moral way? And it doesn't matter what the system is or whatever. So if there's a system that allows a moral person to act in a moral way and get a win for the good guys, let them do it. I know there's an argument against that where it's like you you change the perception of what is okay and not okay, and then the the people that are evil are going to use it to an even more extreme degree, and they're going to be able to get away with it because you already said, well, it's okay if this guy does it. I still feel like that falls into like that's the procedural thing of like we only say it's okay just because procedurally we've done it before and not because of the context of what is actually happening. You know,
Okay.
it's an argument that says we're basing this not on morals and the context of the situation, but on, is the procedure good enough to make it so that it morally always comes out with the correct answer? And the answer is they can never happen because procedure is just a procedure. The morals come from the person or the people that are um, doing the thing, and that's kind of where our discussion of the cop thing comes in too, right? You know, the uh, you can just follow the procedure, and it's like book says you were going over 5 miles or 10 miles over the speed limit, which means $200 fine. Or you can be like, look, your record, you don't really have any speeding tickets. You're probably just going over. I'm going to give you a warning, right? That's the human element, the moral element that has to make kind of that decision.
Yep.
And that's kind of what it always comes down to, which is can sound like a cop out, but that's just kind of how it is.
John Adams would have put it this way. He would have said, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the governance of any other."
Yeah, and
Which I think
that's
is
just
pretty much what you're saying there.
yeah, and I mean that's just like uh, how it is, and that's how it's always been. Like you know, no one's gonna make you get up and go to work and do the things you need to do to make sure that you are like a good person and walking the narrow path and all that stuff. Like you have to do those things, and it requires you to put in that extra effort to spend some calories to you know do the things that aren't necessarily fun but are fulfilling. You know?
Yeah, yeah. Like I don't want to go for a run every day, but I also, don't want to be a fat pile of goo.
Yeah. And sometimes they do a run every day and are still a fat pile of goo like myself. So, but it happens.
Yeah.
So, I don't. Did they cover the topic, or do we want to move on to something else?
Yeah, I think it pretty much covers the topic.
Okay.
Yeah. No, funny. Another quote that I just read. So the best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
See,
dude.
that's like,
Honestly, at this point, I think we should practically just have a king. That way, everything's stable. And yeah, I mean, king could be the best or worst thing for you.
I know. Like, I keep kind of going back and forth on that, because it's like, there's a ton of people that are like, don't know what the heck they're doing. But the problem is, I also know that like a lot of those people that don't know what the heck they're doing are running the ship.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, the average voter is uninformed, sure. But like the average politician is either okay, they're either like a person that's hell bent on power and therefore it doesn't matter how they get it or whatever, or they're inept and retarded, right? They're like the useful idiot that the power people use to just keep propelling them. Like you need a certain amount of useful idiots in like Congress and stuff like that for like the couple key players to just propel themselves more. And yeah, like I don't remember who said this. Oh, I think it was on a Tucker Carlson thing where he's like, I don't mind having elites in our society, but I expect them to be elite.
yeah. There's some people who are just naturally elite. For example, Elon Musk or I don't know, Jeff Bezos. People who are smart enough to generate vast amounts of wealth and create these crazy companies.
I think Elon Musk is a sham, but I'll give you
I
Jeff
mean,
Bezos.
I've heard that, but I think Elon Musk is pretty cool. I'd actually want one of his cars.
I have no like if people are like into Teslas and like think they're cool and want to do like if I'm not saying that his companies aren't necessarily doing things. I just think he's basically a PR guy and potentially doesn't know it's there he's like a fiction that they put out and they're like he's running like 12 different companies and in reality it's 12 different companies that just have this guy as their PR guy as their front and then like the actual CEOs are getting the shit done behind the scenes.
I mean,
But
yeah,
there's
one man
separate
certainly can't do
see
everything.
there's separate people working for each of these companies. It's so yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, no, I almost, I don't know if you know of this. I'm not sure what the system was called exactly, but I believe it was the Greeks who had a little machine that they would pretty much put marbles into with different people's names. And then those people, then that machine would kind of just randomly select who is going to be the king, who is going to be the secretary of state or whatnot. So
Oh
you'd have a
yeah, this
lot of
is like the
yeah.
Athenians, right? The Athenians got like so hardcore into democracy that they're like literally anyone can be anything and we're just going to make it random.
I actually like that a lot, though. I think that that is actually a good thing, especially if you have, I don't know, you take a bunch of successful people out of society and you say, hey, look, this is not a position of privilege. This is a position that needs to be filled. It is a duty of yours to fill it. And I don't know about you, but a lot of the people that I've worked with in the past, especially the higher up, engineer managers or whatnot that I've worked with, I've thought, yeah, I would rather have this guy be my president. I don't even know his politics, and I don't need to, or Secretary of State, and they've already been so successful in the private sector that I would be happy to put them in the public
Okay.
sector. I'd make them
Yeah,
king if I
but
could.
you're not but that's not how the system worked. It was
No,
like
no. Okay,
at that company, you know, everyone would be in the same pool and the line worker guy who's good at doing, welding or machining and stuff like
sure.
that might end up as the desk secretary, which he doesn't want to do, hates and isn't necessarily good at. And then the desk secretary ends up as the CEO and the CEO ends up as the machine operator. and it's just like a mess.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I'm not suggesting that this would work for a company. Um, Shoot, I think I might be defeating my own argument here.
Exactly.
But I'm suggesting that if you took a bunch of very intelligent people who have proven themselves in the private sector, and regardless of whether they want the position or not, and this also is against the non-aggression principle, and I understand that. And you say, nope, you are now going to be the president, you are going to be the secretary, you are going to be whatever, you're going to be a senator. I think it would be better to have that, because you would have people who don't want power having power instead of people who wanting power to have power.
So you just want Ron Swanson in every position, is what you're saying.
That's my argument, and I stick by it.
Well, that would be entertaining. Don't get me wrong. Uh, I just
I think the people who want
like.
power are
I
the
don't
least.
think I don't think we necessarily have the best people in place right now.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean that someone that's running a private company would necessarily be any better. You know, like the biggest issue with our politics and stuff like that is like how the system is innately corrupt, right? That's like the one of the bigger problems. And it's just there's not really getting any there's no getting around that.
Well, yeah, no, I understand. I mean, there's a lot of business in politics, and I think that is bad for the most part. For whatever reason, all the Europeans drive diesels, and we drive gasoline cars, even though diesels are inherently more efficient.
We also had to remove lead from our gas.
I don't know if there's a good reason behind that or not. I just know
It was
so little
cheaper to
about that.
manufacture. It made it so it like separated or so, like it had like a
Lead
longer
is
shelf life or something like that.
lead is a pretty disgusting substance too, though. It's really bad for you.
Yeah, we had known this for a while, but we put it in our gasoline, we put it in our paint. Now, I don't think the paint's as big of a deal, but because like
Yeah,
my
just don't snort it.
I used to work construction and stuff like that. My dad ran a company, and you know, they'd be like, "Oh, if you ever take lead paint off a house or whatever, you have to do like all these extra things." And it's like, all right, how much lead paint would it take to like kill someone? And it's like, well, if you fill up an entire mug of coffee with lead paint chips and you ate that entire thing, that would kill a small child or something like that. And it's just like,
Yeah, but
what?
do you know the symptoms of lead poisoning, though? Lead poisoning, I know of one guy I used to work with who told me all about lead poisoning because he had some real problems with that. It's some pretty nasty stuff.
I'm not,
So I
but like, it's just, look, I'm not saying that we should have lead back in our paint. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, like, the levels they would make you go to like clean it up were like insane.
Yeah, they overdid it.
You could like you could just make sure it was pretty well clean. The rest of it would just kind of get buried in time. You know, like because the thing is, when you're done doing like a project or whatever, you want to make sure that the house is clean and like looks basically how you left it. But there's always going to be like one or two minor things that you're going to miss here and there. Like, you know, a little tiny paint chip gets lost somewhere. And you know what? That's going to get buried with time. It's going to deteriorate. It's fine. You know, lead was in the ground
No
before we
argument.
pulled it out and put it into guns and shot each other with it. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean you're definitely correct about that. Yeah, I guess I just don't have a strong enough opinion to continue.
But um, yeah.
So we were wrong about our prediction on Ghislaine Maxwell, though.
I haven't been following that at all. What happened?
She's still alive.
I didn't say she'd die in a week. I mean, it took
um,
Epstein. I think
Sleepy
they held him
guards.
for like a month, didn't they?
They hold on for that long. Huh, interesting. I think that you had thought he was not going to get whacked when we
Uh,
first talked about it.
the um, the Epstein guy.
Yeah, Epstein when he was killed
Well,
in
it was
prison.
so like if it was a situation where it was like if you do kill him, it's so obvious that it wasn't like a suicide like they'd claim that it seemed like they weren't gonna do it, but I guess they didn't care.
Yeah, no, apparently. I think that was kind of a warning shot to anyone else, as much as anything else. Um, but yeah, no, I haven't been following it too much. I just know she's still alive, and I think that's kind of crazy. I actually thought that she was going to get got. I kind of thought she would just disappear, um, you know, Russian communist style. But no, she's still kicking.
True enough.
I'm
Yeah. So
curious if she's going to live long enough to be able to tell us anything useful, though.
and she might not have anything useful that they don't already have because apparently they have like a bunch of um, emails and like hard drives and like a whole bunch of weird stuff. Um, or not weird stuff, but like a whole bunch of like information that's like outside of her testimony necessarily. So it might just be that they don't even necessarily need her, and therefore killing her doesn't help their situation. They're better off trying to destroy all the evidence that they picked up. But
Yeah, I'm more worried that it could be a loose end, or I guess if I was one of these horrible people, I would be more worried that's a loose end, just to tie up. Dead men tell no tales, or dead women tell no tales.
yeah, it's I don't know. It costs uh, political power and stuff like that to make those things happen. Like that doesn't just happen overnight, right? You gotta. It's a lot of favors you need to sign out to make that happen.
So I'm just curious, like, let's say, I'm not suggesting this, by the way, but let's say that we go into an ultra crazy Tom Clancy style story here.
Okay.
And let's say that she spills the beans and she gives a bunch of documents that say that, I don't know, let's say something crazy like 50% of or let's say 80%, some crazy percentage of our elected representatives were involved in Epstein in the nefarious ways that you would associate with Epstein.
Yep.
What would happen to this country? Because people, the murder rates of people who go to prison for these kind of crimes is staggeringly high. People do not like people who hurt women and who hurt children. It's
Yeah,
just
I don't know if they'd be held to
really bad.
account.
All right, but what would happen then? Would we just accept that, okay, hey, our elites do it, so therefore why shouldn't the average person be able to do this?
I think the media would bury it, and most of the country wouldn't know. And then when you
Okay.
bring up something that's clearly happened and is clearly a fact, people will just call you crazy like they always do. Call you conspiracy theory nut. You
All right, but
know.
let's say like this gets out on Fox News, CNN, all over the internet tomorrow. I'm not talking just Infowars. So this, all these documents are released. This is public knowledge. Everyone knows about it.
Yeah.
Would this country go into complete chaos, or would this country turn a blind eye like it oftentimes does?
So there's two ways it could go. So it could turn a blind eye, and depending on how furious people were, it could spark like an insurrection. That's possibility number one. I don't know how likely that is. Possibility number two is if the people like let's say Trump and stuff like is part of the group like the group that isn't indicted
Yep.
could use that to declare martial law and put themselves in power and then and execute all those people. And I give because of the power grab that works out to and the amount of um, support you would have for that power grab, I see that being a more plausible option. And then basically what we'd have is we would have the end of the republic like Rome did, like the the republic would collapse, and then we would go into, we'd have a Caesar moment, and some Caesar type character would take over and become the dictator, and
Yeah,
America
that would
as
be
we knew
pretty
it would
insane.
cease to exist.
I don't. So I was listening to Jocko Willings. I'm sure you know who that is.
Yeah, I haven't listened to any of his stuff, but I do know. I've seen
So
his.
he's talked about there being bad groups of people, right? Even like for SEALs, for example, which some of the best soldiers that probably never walked the planet. And you can get a bad SEAL team where you have a bad leader, so you just replace the leader and fine, everything gets better. But there's times where the entire unit is just poor, or it's not effective, or something is inherently wrong with the entire unit. They can disband the entire unit and then bring in a new unit to replace them in entirety. Do you think it'd be possible to roughly peacefully um, get rid of a huge number of our elected representatives? I'm not saying shoot them or anything. I'm just saying they're fired or whatnot because of the crimes they've committed, and replace them with better leaders.
Yes, but it's things. Okay, you think like COVID and like these protests and like burning cities down has been crazy? Like,
It has been.
it's got to get like 10 times more intense than that, and that's probably going to happen.
Well, the other thing is, I think that people who are willing to hurt children, even women, I mean, I don't, not disparaging that. It's just, or belittling it. That's the word I'm trying to say. There's a very small percent. I think that there's a very small percentage of people who'd be willing to go and hurt women or children. And I think that people really hate people who are willing to go and hurt women. But people have just this, I don't know, unkempt rage towards people who are willing to hurt children. And
Yeah, but
I
part of
don't
that
think
is
that
an
it could
evacuation
go.
of your own responsibility.
Well, I guess I don't fully understand.
So, like, okay, so part of this is like, okay, so a lot of times when you hear people like, oh, like, when they go on about like the pedophile problem in like Hollywood and or the um, Catholic Church or just or schools and stuff like that, it's like, it's like, okay, well, what are you doing to stop it, or are you just trying to traumatize yourself so you can like go squirt more, you know? So it's like, because the thing is, it it's like, okay, yes, these are all problems. But are they a problem in your life, right? Are you sending your kids to? Are you watching Hollywood movies, right? That's something you can do right there. Are you set like one that most people definitely aren't doing? Are you sending your kids to star in Hollywood movies? If you don't do that, they're not going to get raped by Hollywood pedos. Pretty simple. Um, are you sending your kids to public schools where they could potentially get molested, or are you raising them, or are you homeschooling them? That's a way that you can prevent all this stuff from happening. There's small actions you can take in your life to take control back, but like people don't actually want to be in control. They want to just have all this fear and stuff like that so that it gives them an excuse to not act.
Well, I don't know if that's totally true. Like I was talking about earlier with the prison death rates of pedophiles, people are very willing to take this stuff into their own hands, for better or for worse,
Yeah. No, I'm not saying that's
quite often.
yeah, what I'm saying is the average person that's not the case.
Okay.
Like
Yeah, I think that's probably correct. Don't rock the boat.
yeah, people in prison, like you're already in prison, especially if you're already in prison for murder. Like all right, let's just get one good one back. Also, a lot of those people that ended up in prison for murder are because they were raped as kids. So,
Yes. Yep. Very
it's got
true.
an extra layer to it. And there are probably some vigilantes out there that we don't know about that are, you know, uh, tracking down and killing pedos and stuff like that. Because like those people are loners in general, so like they'd be pretty easy to remove. um, with no one noticing. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not saying do that. Don't like vengeance is the Lord. Like, just
Yeah. Vengeance is the Lord's work. Yeah,
do
I
the
think that's
things
a
that
very good thing to
you
say.
can make it so your kids don't have to experience that, and it fixes itself.
Yeah, self responsibility. Take care of yourself, take care of your wife, take care of your family,
Yeah,
and you shouldn't have any problems. And you are strong enough to deal with any problems that do come your way. I think that's a very honorable and very correct way that people should look out on the world.
yeah, and like
That,
the
that,
only reason
that
these people can hide in the shadows and in their little corners and stuff like that is because those corners exist. If you remove all that stuff from them, like, what option do they have? So like the thing is they'll so it's one of two things. Either they'll go away, which is unlikely because they have like they're blinded by their passions and like they just can't help themselves. Like they will just go to like this is the thing they have to do. They're that like they there might be a way they can turn it around, but I don't see it. Let's put it that way. So basically, if you remove all of these places where they're allowed to hide, like because Hollywood's falling apart because nobody's watching their movies, and the public schools no longer have any kids in them, so that's not a place that the predators want to go and stuff like that. They'll have to go to places where all of a sudden you're in control and you have the means to keep these people out, and like no, you're not allowed. And then they'll reveal themselves, and then once they're revealed, then you can uh, it'd be like, oh, this person's trying to be a predator, and then the proper legal actions can be taken. You know, it's a way of kind of snuffing them out through smoking them out in a certain sense. And it only takes like 1 to 2 good generations of raising good moral people, and this problem's not gone. Like it's never like we live in a fallen world. Like you're never gonna fix the problem completely, but at least you it won't be an issue if you're living a good moral upstanding life within your life.
no, I agree. I think that's self evident. I mean, smallpox is effectively eradicated, and that only took a couple generations. Um, yeah, yeah, no, I agree. But I still don't know what would happen to this country if that if we had a significant portion of people who are in power, uh, if there was undeniable evidence that came forward that showed that these people are rotten people, like rotten in a way that's not that you can't regain your virtue, at least not in the eyes of society.
Well, it
I'm not
depends on
sure what
whether or
happened.
not people care about virtue. That's and
I think
moral.
a lot of people do, but I don't know
There
if
is a
that's
lot. Like,
correct.
look, yeah, like
I'd say that most
I would
people
say
do.
most people, outside of obviously pedophiles, like the pedophilia line's pretty hardcore, right? That's like an innate thing
Yeah,
in most people.
makes me feel literally sick. Yeah.
But the thing is, like, you got to realize, like, when people are presented with evidence like that, your most people's first reaction is to say it doesn't exist.
Well, yeah, but I could also say anything about most people, right? Or I don't know, like I could accuse anyone of anything, and it doesn't mean that they are that thing.
Yeah, but
Like I
like,
could,
okay,
yeah,
just think, like, if you don't, most people think the world is round, and if you show them evidence that the world is not round, they still won't believe you. Or
yeah,
like, take like a million other conspiracy theories. Like, it's like that level of thing, right? People because it's like it's a way to deal with trauma. One of the ways that like because that revelation of that would be so traumatizing to most people that the way they deal with it is to say it's not real. It doesn't.
cognitive
It's
dissonance.
not. Didn't happen. I'm gonna ignore this and act
Yep,
like
cognitive dissonance.
it's and just create cognitive. And you can with some people you can kind of see that right now. Like it happens on a lot of levels, but there's depending on where you are and like uh, on how you see the world and stuff like that, you can see it in other people. So like Trump derangement syndrome is something that most people can see and see how it's like absolutely crazy or whatever. But those people in their worldview, to them, it's they their whole thing was uh, they bought hook, line, and sinker everything the media was saying, and so like when the uh, the thing that said that it could never happen, that Hillary Clinton would definitely win, and Donald Trump is obviously this crazy racist that nobody likes and nobody supports, and he wins the presidency, that like shatters their brain. And so they can't believe that he's actually in there. So they're like, all right, well, we have to impeach him, or we have to like they create they just create this persona of like Orange Man bad because they can't face the reality that they were potentially they saw the world their worldview and their outlook on life is fundamentally wrong. And that's something I had to go through at the time, right? I to a certain extent, like I wasn't really into Hillary because it was like she's crooked or whatever. Uh, Thank you, Trump, for that great rhetoric. But then I kind of did believe this whole thing of like Trump being like a terrible person, and I hadn't done like a ton of research. I kind of bought into like the lies, and but like when he won, it was like this weird thing where I still kind of believed it, but there was like a shift, and I was like, they were saying like all this crazy shit, and it wasn't, and that didn't happen. Like, and so it made me re-examine everything in my life, and now I'm like way like shit went like crazy. Um, but at that moment, I had two roads. I could have gone Trump derangement syndrome, or I could have gone, okay, well, there's clearly something I don't understand here, and now I need to look into my worldviews and restructure everything. And over a 4 year period, I went from kind of being like middle left Democrat type person, maybe a little Republican esque, to like, I don't think the world is round and space is real. Like, that's the level of like jump that we've gone over in like a 4 year period because I had to start examining fundamental things. And once you start doing that, you start realizing that this shit goes pretty fucking deep.
Yeah, yeah. You know, at this point, I don't think I would be surprised if the moon was made out of cheese. To be honest, like everything is just so insane.
Yeah, I've heard plasma. Um, there was actually
It's
there's
made
a
out of
super
cheese.
fascinating visit. It
Fact.
might be cheese. Unlikely, but there's a chance, I guess. There's a super
Yeah,
cool
we've been
video
there.
of somebody that there was like a crescent moon, and he caught. Uh, so on the inside of the crescent, the not where so you have the moon, and it's supposed to be a solid thing that's covered up by like there's a shadow, right? That makes it so it's a crescent. So in that shadow area, the dude zoomed in with his telescope, and you could see Mars in the area that was supposed to be covered in shadow.
Hmm. I was hoping you were going to say cheese.
So like it's like so does is the moon translucent? Is that thing in front of it? Is it well, no, it wasn't in front of it because it would be behind the the like the part that still looked like a moon. Like you wouldn't see it then, but then it would creep out to where you could see it where supposedly there's supposed to be a chunk of moon and it's just covered up by a shadow and there isn't any. And it was super cool, dude. And so like is the moon like does the moon disappear and reappear? Like is it on a cycle where it like it grows and then shrinks? It's kind of like a phoenix where it like rises from the ashes and then goes back down to die and then a new moon is born every 28 days. I don't know, but it's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, no, I get that. One question I've always wondered is, I mean, this is a little bit silly, but like, why is the sky blue if everything's outer space? Past it, so that would mean that the sky is really, this should really be black.
Cause it's water.
Well, I mean, well, yeah, no, I get that. It's water particles and the
No,
the
I'm talking
reflection
like
off the ocean, I believe. At least I think that's
water's
the
above, water's
explanation.
below. Like we're in Atlantis.
Exactly. We are Atlantis. Yeah. No, I get it.
And I
Um,
don't. That's not necessary. I'm not saying that's 100% true, but there's um there's some stuff that I've seen that points to that being a possibility.
sure, sure. I mean, I wouldn't even be surprised at this point.
Because there's cool videos of now one thing I have been disappointed by these videos. But anyway, so there's these cool videos of people shooting like rockets up, and they like they're like high altitude rockets, and they hit some kind of barrier when they get a certain height up there, and it's weird. Now, one thing I haven't seen that I really want to see is what they'll do is they'll have like the the camera pointing down because they're trying to get like a picture of like the ground and stuff like that, and see like what's going on the ground or whatever. And so they're shooting, and then like all of a sudden it stops spinning or something weird, and it's like kind of stuck there. I want to see that camera flipped around to see what it looks like when you smash into this potential barrier. And I haven't seen a video like that yet, so maybe I'll have to get a rocket myself. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I had guys at school that would make their own rockets. They were pretty cool. They would use, I think, sugar as fuel, and I can't remember how they did it exactly. I was never part of the group.
Mm,
Pretty darn
cool.
cool stuff, though, if I don't say so myself.
Yeah, I had a couple
But
rocket things when I was younger that were pretty fun. You'd shoot them off. Problem is, I live in a city, so you can't shoot them off that often.
yeah, yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah, no, I the only rockets I ever really used were like bottle rockets, or and I guess they're moon whistlers. For the last time, 4th of July, bought a whole
Bottle
bunch of them.
rockets are fun.
Bottle rockets are pretty darn cool.
Anything with the name rocket on it is usually pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's extra good when you get a bunch of drunk fraternity guys throwing bottle rockets at each other.
Oh, good times.
Always a good time. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
But anyways, so change of subject a little bit. With the craziness that's going on in China with Hong Kong and what probably will happen with Taiwan, I don't know what's going to happen, but there's a lot of insanity right now. I know that New York, that law enforcement found a shipment of tons, and I repeat that, tons of human hair. And I know that they are doing I don't know how you put this, I guess a genocide and ethnic cleansing of the Muslim people in China.
What does the
And
hair have to do with that?
so they are known to harvest organs from people and to take, like you can turn hair into wigs or whatnot, right?
Yeah. But like, I
The
mean,
thing about,
people donate their hair all the time.
uh, yeah, I actually didn't even consider that. I think that it's mostly, hmm, that's interesting. I hadn't considered that. That's probably also a possibility.
Yeah. That for the hair one, that's the more likely. I know there are concentration camps of like Muslims and stuff like that out in China, but it's like in the northeastern section where there's more of a Muslim sect. But I don't know much about like what's going on over there because you always just get the piecemeal thing from like the American press, and it's you never. Sometimes they're right about stuff, but you never trust them. Not like you
Yeah,
trust the
yeah, no,
Chinese
you're
either, but
correct because, for example, with the Gulf of Tonkin for Vietnam, ended up very likely just being a hoax, which got us into one of the longest wars we've ever been in, and totally drained manpower and treasure from this country. But with that being said, so like let's say that everything we know about China is correct. It's 100% fact, and I'm not saying it is. But if all this hair was taken forcibly from people, if they are doing the organ harvesting of these people, then I would argue, assuming everything we know about them and everything we knew about uh, the Weimar, or I guess the National Socialist German Party in the 40s, if it was a moral necessity for us to go to war with the Germans in the 40s, then I would argue that it's probably a moral necessity to go to war with China nowadays. I'm not arguing it is a moral necessity, um, but I'm saying if, then, because.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to war with China. I don't want to go to war with anyone.
I don't know. I I'm kind of done with this whole policing other people's shit. Like they I don't even know exactly what's going on over there. Like I've heard things here and there, but dude, that especially when you're getting it from like all these untrustworthy sources, like it's so grabbled. Like and they'll try to like you said like the Nazi thing, like they're intentionally trying to make it sound like a Nazi thing to give the onus to go to war.
Although China is a much larger country than we are, and if we're fighting on their territory, I don't think it would even be possible for us to conquer China. Not without, not without weaponry that I don't know exists.
Yeah, no, like we can't win a war against China. No fucking way.
You're not getting into a land war in Asia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I think it's interesting because let's say that, and I'm not saying it is, but let's say that everything we know is true, that the Chinese released this virus that's shut down America and the rest of the world, and that China's doing well. China is getting into little battles with India right now. I read, or no, I heard that the Chinese actually recently reoccupied a city in Russia. It was a Russian. It was a Chinese city a long time ago. I think that the Russians or the Soviets took it in the 20s, the 1920s or thereabouts, and now the Chinese, literally 100 years later, have decided that they now own that piece of property again. So China is trying to expand. China
Yeah,
has
but China
their yep.
they're trying to expand but like they don't want to conquer the world, right? Like China's got a long history. So for them, 100 years ago is like the blink of an eye. It's like you just grabbed that like yesterday and I want it back. That's how the Chinese people think. So to them, like to Russia, maybe it's like, dude, it's been like 100 years, and China's like, yeah, it's only been 100 years. I want that territory back.
Yeah, dude.
Like,
Hey, you give me my lawnmower back? Lent it to you a while ago now.
like their borders will maybe change a little bit, but it's like they don't want to conquer all of India. They don't like they want Taiwan, they want Hong Kong, and they want a couple other key spots that probably have Han Chinese in them. Outside of
Yeah.
that, they're probably not interested. They are conquering certain areas like a couple African nations and Canada via immigration right now just because they're looking for more land because they have so many people. So in that regard, it's kind of, but like in general China just wants just like you want to be left alone from the US government. China just wants to be left the fuck alone by Western countries. And it hasn't been allowed to in like 400 years. And it's kind of shit, tired of that shit. And it's finally gotten to a point where, like, China's always gone back and forth and being a major power, and then it falls off, and then it comes back and is a major power again. And they're on the upswing to becoming another major power again. And when they do that, they're going to tell the world to fuck off and leave them alone.
Yeah, yeah. I actually don't think balkanization of China would be out of the question, but maybe I'm just not well educated enough on it.
There's certain you got to remember 95% of the one something billion people in China are Han Chinese. That
Sure.
is more ethnically homogenous than like the United it's the same ethnic homogeneity that the United States had in the 1950s if you have the group of white.
Yeah, well,
Right?
white people are pretty much all the
And
same,
white's
right?
just like from European descent, effectively. So that's not even like a group. So
Wait,
they're
wait, wait,
a
wait, wait.
very
Let me
homogenous nation.
get something straight. Are you saying that the Russians aren't effectively the same as the Germans, or the French aren't effectively the same as the English, or the
Yes, that is what
Italians?
they're not the same, obviously.
Oh my God, Italians are pretty much exactly Norwegians, though.
No.
All right, I'm sorry, I made my point. No, I'm being silly. But
um
yeah, I understand what you're saying.
so yes, there are people like you have Tibet in there and um uh, the Muslims that are up in that other corner. I forgot what ethnicity they are. I think it starts with
Uh,
M.
it's Uyghur. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce it. It's
Ugar or something.
yeah, I don't even want to try to pronounce it. It's Uyghur. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
Is that the region or is that the people?
um, I don't know, to be honest with you. So I apologize.
Okay. Anyway, whatever that group is, you got that in there, and then there's like little groups here and there, but like nothing that's so for them to separate and become their own nation, they're gonna need a large en- they're gonna need a large enough group to stand against China, right? And generally, when it comes to immigration and stuff like that, you see a flashpoint happen at about a 30% population of one central ethnicity. So, like, being that at most all these separate ethnicities, like if there was only two ethnicities, you would have 95% Han Chinese and 5% some other ethnicity. I don't see it being a problem.
Yeah, I've heard similar things before. I guess I don't know too much about it, but yeah, no, it seems that yeah, I would assume if you had 95% of people being of one ethnic group and 5% of being a different ethnic group, I don't see how that would be a big problem. Maybe this is just me coming from America, from a relatively diverse group of people, or at least being around relatively diverse groups of people always.
Yeah. The question obviously is what is that entire generation of uh, males going to do that were born like if they don't allow mail order brides in China, they'll be fine. If they do allow mail order brides, they could have problems.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. But so as far as getting into a conflict with China, is that even possible? Do you think?
It's more possible than I thought it was a week ago. I
Yeah,
thought there
that's
was
my thought
no
too.
way. But then here's the thing. Trump's doing that thing where he's kind of blustering and uh talking a big game. Like he did it with North Korea, did it with Iran, right? Where he's like, I'm going to go he's doing the saber rattling, right? And then eventually we kind of work something out and nothing happens of it. The thing is, the Chinese are in a position where they could potentially call him on his bluff. And
Yep.
so that's where things get interesting. And I don't know what happens if that happens.
Yeah. So China has roughly 1.4 billion people.
Is that how many it is now?
Yeah, it's quite a bit. I just looked it up.
What's India at? Is India higher than them now, or are they?
I can
I
tell you in 2 seconds.
thought they were, but
I don't know if India has the same level of infrastructure that China does. So yeah, India has 1.35 billion,
okay.
and China has 1.439 billion people. So I think that's, I don't know, like 13 versus 14. That's roughly the same in my books.
Yeah. Well, I thought India had overtaken China, but then when it was at 1.4 billion, I was like, oh, maybe China's turned it around again.
Yeah.
Start pumping
So
out them babies.
yeah, my big point with that is that America really is outnumbered by the Chinese, or their gross population, by a factor of about one, well, I guess a little bit more than 1-4. But India also may get into a war with China, which would be insane. Two nuke powers going at it.
Well, it's not like
Um,
China versus America wouldn't be two nuke powers going at it.
well, yeah, I understand that, but India is right there. India is right on the border with China, where America has a whole ocean between us and the rest of the world
Yeah,
with our
here's the
relatively
thing.
peaceful neighbors.
Pakistan is also a nuclear power, and Pakistan and India go to war with each other constantly, and nobody's nuked each other.
Yeah,
Nobody hears
that's
about
correct.
it, nobody brings it up because like the media doesn't talk about it, but like they go into hot conflicts all the time.
No, I understand that. It's just, well, their hot conflicts are not really big conflicts, though. I don't think. Maybe I'm
I mean,
totally
they're
wrong
big
about
enough
that.
to get out like planes and shit, I think. Like yeah,
Yeah,
it's not like a massive invasion of either nation. It's border skirmishes. But I I don't think their conflict like I said, I don't think India wants to conquer China and I don't think China wants to conquer India. So it's going to be border skirmishes too. So that's not really a concern.
so, how I understand it is generally in war, the purpose of going to war with another nation is to capture the tax base. That way, the tax base is then paying into your coffers.
I get it.
And you said again?
Well, sure, but like you still have to manage that tax base.
Yes, yes. And you have to have soldiers on foot in that country. It's very dangerous for your soldiers, it's very dangerous for your nation in total. And violence begets more violence. Um, yeah, I guess I don't fully understand what the purpose of a country like India and China going to war with each other would be.
Here's the thing, colonialism has evolved. We don't need to go to war with people to get countries to be colonial subservients to them, right?
That's correct.
All you have to do is establish key Chinese uh, businesses in India, in America, in all these different parts of the world, and extract the resources you need out of those areas, send them back to the homeland, and build all the manufactured stuff, and then ship it back to those areas and sell it to them, just like they used to do in colonial times. But this way, it's much more sophisticated, and you don't have to kill a bunch of people.
Yeah, it's probably a lot more stable as well
Mm, It
for the time
depends
being.
on whether or not what people's outlook on economics is. The outlook of economics today, yeah, everyone's going to fall for that one. The economics of people in like the 1800s, probably not. And in the future, where people are becoming far more realizing that nationality is far more important and how nationality ties into economics and all that stuff, um, it's we'll see what happens.
We shall. I don't know if I have really anything else that I would like to talk about. Do you have anything else you'd like to talk about?
No, I'm cool rapping there.
All right, cool. Well, that is the Andrew and Nate podcast, or the Nate and Andrew podcast. And yeah, again, the world is a little bit crazy. The federal government's putting law enforcement out in different parts of crazy states like Portland. And we don't know what's going to happen with Ghislaine Maxwell. I still think that she will be disappeared or suicided in some way. And China, no idea what's going to happen there, but it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, so if you listen to this, great. If you thought it was awesome, share it with people, like, subscribe, leave a comment. There doesn't seem to be a lot of people listening to this, so we might actually get to interact with your comments, which is always fun. But yeah, hopefully you had a good one, and it was nice talking to you again, Nate, and we will see you guys next week.
Yep. Have a good one, Andrew.